Across the UK.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live. Up all night.
And I'm Andrew Fletcher. Good to have your company this Friday morning. And it's Up All Night. We're here with you until 5 o'clock. Now, a commander of the Kurdish militia defending the northern Syrian town of Kobane says Islamic State fighters have been driven out of all but 2 pockets of resistance on the eastern fringes of the town. The commander, Baharin Kandal, told the BBC that US-led airstrikes had forced IS fighters to retreat, and she hoped the city would be liberated very soon. Well, for more analysis of what's happening, I spoke to Jill Sargent Russell, who's a military historian and former defence consultant.
As far as anyone can tell, what's happening on the ground now is that there's a fairly decent defense and fight going on for Kobane with the assistance of U.S. and coalition airstrikes. The local defenders seem to be doing a very good job. And it's that reason which, A, suggests the potential success and very high potential success of any assistance to them militarily. And it's part of what might also make it more politically easy to assist them, because there is a visible, identifiable, coherent actor on the ground that's putting forth a substantial defense of itself. And all that it lacks is a certain amount of personnel and material support to make it happen. But they've already manifested the will and the capability on the ground. And that's what's important, and I think what could speak politically to decision makers.
And you see that as more important to you than the impact of the US-led airstrikes?
Well, the US-led airstrikes are certainly helpful to them because of the nature of the ground around the town. I mean, it's mostly open space. ISIS or ISIL or whatever we're calling them has to mass there in order to make some sort of attack on the town. So airstrikes can be quite effective. They're more effective if they have coordination from the ground, which knows where friendly forces are, knows better where the enemy forces are. So they're effective insofar as they can be relatively blind as they are right now. They could be more effective if there were more people on the ground. But airstrikes suffer from an inability to be sustained over a period of time. You can fire artillery regularly for kind of as much time as you need, which suppresses an enemy, keeps them from moving, all of these things. Airstrikes don't necessarily give you that capability. So they can do something, and they've been as effective as they can be. Whether they're enough depends on what ISIL's willing to do in this next phase.
So what are the different options? What might happen, do you think?
The thing that would suggest to me that the fight will continue until there's something definitive is that having made this attack, ISIL is attached to it now in their propaganda, in their media war, in all of the things which are very important to them, how they sell themselves to the world, to their supporters, to their potential supporters. If they are seen to be turned away from this, it could be a fairly significant strategic setback for them. So you'd want to expect them to continue fighting until they're incapable of continuing. This isn't a situation where, as insurgents, they might just melt into the background. They've staked themselves to this fight. And if they lose, you could compare it, say, to Midway in World War II, where it is the high watermark, it's the limit to what they can do, and what comes next is their eventual, if slow, defeat.
And you feel that there's certainly a strategy there which could lead to the defeat of IS in this area, but it's the political consensus that needs to be in place in order for that to happen.
I mean, it's not a complicated strategy to defend a town and defeat attackers who have to mass on the ground. I mean, armies have been doing it for thousands of years. So long as you have the materiel to do it, it's not that difficult. I know two guys who tonight could make a plan to defend and defeat them if they had enough people. It becomes then a question of the political will to do it. And there are concerns about Turkey. And then what do you do about the rest of the civil war in Syria? I think if you were going to do something in Kobane, you'd want to make it clear that your actions are specific to this situation and to the circumstances in this situation. But that would then also be a signal that were other areas of Syria and Iraq to manifest themselves a willingness to fight against ISIL, other extremists, that assistance would then be forthcoming as well there. So it is in one way, unique and specific political decision, but it's one that could be used to signal further willingness if similar capabilities were shown from those on the ground. Because ultimately, it is up to the local will to defeat this opponent. It can't be that it's what we want.
Sure. I wonder how you assess the military capability of IS. I mean, how sophisticated a military force are they in comparison with, say, Al-Qaeda or with the Taliban fighters?
I'm not sure I can speak comparatively, but if you look at what they were able to do in Iraq, in terms of, in that campaign of being aware of their capabilities, of what a smaller force can do in a country, they were able to use their ability to infiltrate, to gather intelligence and do reconnaissance so that when they opened their attack, they knew where, say, Iraqi army units were going to be moving and how they would be driving. The very, very awful video, Clanging of the Swords, shows these hunter units, and they're attacking Iraqi army officers and personnel who are leaving in civilian vehicles. And they know what the vehicles are, and they're targeting them, and they're taking them out, which shows that they're sophisticated in how to do reconnaissance, how to do intelligence, how to set up an operation, things like this. When you start to talk about their ability to lay siege to a town, which is defended, they don't have the materiel to do that. They don't have, I mean, that requires now military weaponry, all of these things, which they simply don't have. It requires a kind of coordination of large units, which they haven't done. I mean, they're very much still an amateur force, which isn't to say that they should be discounted, but it is that they haven't moved through these levels of military capability, which thinkers like Mao, you go from an insurgent or a terrorist group, and then you mass up and you start to learn more advanced and technical bits of becoming like a military force until you are finally a conventional force that can take on whomever you're fighting. ISIL has a lot of skills and capabilities, but to lay siege to a town and take it when that town is willing to defend itself, they're not probably there yet. So it's an interesting opportunity to crush them.
Well, before they get there, they might get there, I guess. They might get to that point, and time is of the essence.
Well, time is of the essence if they continue to grow. It's not inexorable that they will continue to succeed. They come out of Al-Qaeda, which, for example, in Anbar in 2007, went too far in its extremism, too far in targeting locals. And in cities like Fallujah, the locals turned around and decided, no, we no longer support you. And they turned on them very effectively. And in many of the things you see ISIL doing, and you see it again happening in Anbar, the locals are saying, we're not keen on this. And I'd rather ally with, even as we're Sunnis, I prefer to